The Outer Worlds 2 and Starfield have a lot problem. Yeah, we know this. None of it makes sense. It's all pretty stupid, lame, and boring. Yeah, these games have a lot problem. That's why no one plays them, no one likes them, and they failed. And they also have a gameplay problem to boot, and well, more other problems, mainly being developed by woke activists and losers. Man, that's a lot of problems, huh?
Last night, I was talking with my wife about video games, debating which setting makes for the best stories. Fantasy, historical, futuristic, you name it. I told her mine was medieval fantasy. No surprises there.
Based.
But when I asked her, she said her favourite setting was space. She loved
This is why we don't take women seriously.
the stars, planets, spaceships, and the endless possibilities of distant galaxies to explore. I responded, I kind of find space games boring. Starfield bored me to tears. The Outer Worlds felt bland. I just didn't find them exciting. Even former Bethesda developer Bruce Nesmith said space is inherently boring after Starfield's criticism. I thought I'd
Well, no, space is very interesting and fun and exciting. Ask anyone who has played. I forgot the name, but it's the comeback game of the century. You know, the true Starfield. Man, No Man's Sky. There we go. I forgot the name for a bit. Gee.
cornered her with the perfect argument, competently proving how my fantasy settings could always offer far more adventure than any space simulation. But then she hit me with a rebuttal that broke my argument immediately. The Mass Effect series. Wait, they were good. Mass Effect is incredible, and so is Star Wars and Star Trek. Suddenly, it hit me. Space isn't
I mean, modern Star Wars is, completely garbage, but okay.
boring at all. The way some games use it is boring. Humans have only ever set foot on the moon. A few probes have touched Mars and Venus. Beyond that, we know nothing. There are billions of planets out there with completely unknown environments. So while a medieval fantasy world like Skyrim gives writers plenty of freedom, space actually offers infinite freedom. Any story, any world, any life form is possible, which raises
Okay. The different life forms and everything, that's your typical Zerg invasion type of stuff, okay? Why I typically like fantasy more, but I do like space. I do like, all the other settings also. The future can be interesting. It just depends on what kind of story you can tell. Because let's be real. In fantasy, what's the story you're going to be telling? About a kingdom, about, taking power, about the dragon. There's not that. There are many ways that you can tell it, but you are limited to a certain selection of stories that you can tell in the first place because of the setting. Space also has the same type of limitations, and every other genre has the same type of limitations, but they change from each other, which makes them fun and interesting. And this is why people like mixing up genres, because you may have a favorite genre, but things adjacent to that, can be a nice change of pace.
This is the question. How did Starfield and the Outer Worlds end up being just humans in space? In this video, I'm going to break down exactly where their creativity fell short, what they could have done instead.
Oh wow, that's a 20-minute video. We can summarize that in 5 seconds by just saying literally everywhere it fell short.
How Mass Effect set the gold standard, and why the problem isn't that space is boring, but that these games fail to use
Mass Effect if we choose to ignore Andromeda.
its limitless potential. Now, Starfield and the Outer Worlds 2 have plenty of other problems: open world structure, quest design, gameplay loops, and I've covered those in other videos linked below. But today I want to focus on one specific issue: how their lack of creativity, established lore, and world building contributed to why these games felt so empty. It's not the only problem, but it's the aspect I want to cover today. So without further ado, let's get into it. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing.
Oh boy.
Creativity is one of the most underrated talents in game development. When you look at the highest scoring games ever made,
Really?
The Last of Us, God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Witcher 3, Baldur's Gate 3, their real strength isn't just gameplay, it's exceptional writing. Even this year, Expedition 33 is resonating with players not just because of its intuitive combat, but because it tells a mature, compelling story with memorable characters. Gameplay matters, of course, but without strong writing, meaningful dialogue,
also they show feet. The Expedition 33 does a good job at that.
and impactful moments, a game rarely reaches the top tier. You could take any of those masterpieces, replace their stories with generic AI written scripts, and they'd instantly drop from masterpiece to forgettable. Writing may be the least talked about element in gaming, but it's often the most important, which brings me to Bethesda.
I mean, this is just okay. So I don't want to be critical about this, but this is just the intro, but it's completely wrong. Okay, we don't have situations where the most impactful thing in something that's popular is not talked about. Everything that is most impactful is gonna be talked about to death. Okay, people don't mention honestly the downfall of Starfield because every system outside of the story was bad. People firstly mentioned the story. It was bad.
They've never been known for strong writing. Their quests often boil down to simple fetch tasks with minimal narrative depth. Their characters
I mean, true, but it was better than Starfield.
are usually flat, and their stories rarely land emotionally. Only about 30% of players even bothered finishing Skyrim's main quest. The Fallout 4 storyline was widely mocked for being predictable. This weakness becomes even more obvious when you compare their writing to studios like Rockstar and CD Projekt Red. Arthur Morgan is a layered, conflicted character, a good man shaped by a brutal life, constantly torn between loyalty and his conscience. The Bloody Baron in The Witcher 3 is a deeply flawed, tragic character, whose trauma and guilt drive one of gaming's most memorable quests. These characters feel human. They're messy, morally grey, and they stay with you long after you finish the game. Now compare that to someone like Ayla the Huntress from Skyrim. She's in the Companions and she uses a bow.
Oh yeah, I remember her because you can get her as the first companion or second. Doesn't matter. It's like, what does she do? Nothing. I have no idea. I just know that whenever this came out, I did have one idea about her. Wink, wink.
Basically her entire character profile. This pattern repeats across Bethesda's games. Where CD Projekt Red's characters could fill chapters, Bethesda's often feel like they were written on the back of a sticky note. This is John, he's a bandit,
I mean, they probably were, if we're being real.
Tough, the end. Yet the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games are some of the most...
And then the sticky note got lost and they had to recreate it from scrap with a vague idea of the vague idea.
Successful games ever, breaking my good writing trumps all rule. Well, how? Well, because Bethesda's poor writing was covered by something much bigger, the lore. Elder Scrolls' entire continent, history, races, and factions were written by Ted Peterson and Julian LeFay way back in '94.
Yep, and now they're getting harmonized in one giant ball of literally who cares, no one asks, and there's no difference. We're all just the part of the universe, friend. Ah, beautiful.
Fallout's world and lore by Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyowski in '97.
Okay, Tim Kaine literally did nothing. Okay, Tim Kaine was just interested on how to. I'm not even gonna get into it.
These established world histories allowed Bethesda...
Also, Tim Kaine completely betrayed the Fallout lore by saying, "Oh no, the Fallout TV show didn't do anything wrong with the lore. Please hire me, Todd Howard. I will be a good boy."
To not worry about creating interesting locations and people within them, because that work had already been done. They just had to follow the blueprint that was created by others decades before. Skyrim and Fallout 4 had poor stories, but it didn't matter. The world itself was interesting
Fallout 4's story was better than Fallout 3, okay?
enough to cover the tracks. Fallout had factions like the Brotherhood of Steel and the Enclave, races like super mutants and ghouls. Elder Scrolls had factions like the Fighters Guild and the Dark Brotherhood, 10 races including Argonians and Khajiits. Starfield had none of this and was Bethesda's first attempt at creating their own lore, and this is where the issues came to light. First of all, they settled on humans in space. That's it. 1,000 planets the player can travel to, and humans are the only spaces to inhabit them. Now, I know us humans can be arrogant, but imagine
I mean, you say it like this, but at the same time, that would kind of mean that Warhammer is boring, but it's not.
Thinking we are the only sentient creatures in a galaxy that literally has no end, infinite planets to explore. So, what factions did they settle on? Space cowboys,
Based.
space pirates, moon farmers with southern accents.
They look like soldiers with uniforms and weapons and such.
Humans in space doing what they do right now, every day, with reskinned Earth societies. Starbucks was Terra Brew, Wells Fargo was Goldbank.
We have heard this, okay? Let's actually make it a little bit more interesting critiquing Starfield. Think about it this way. You live in the future where multiple planets have been colonized by humanity. And what happens? Well, except for the cowboys, everyone is wearing the same bland, uninteresting clothing. There's no style, there's no nothing. It's just the same fucking onesie over and over and over again. Maybe it has 2 different colors this time. It was lame, okay? It was bad, as anything Bethesda does.
This was spaces. No aliens, no bizarre cosmic mysteries, just humans in space doing what they do on Earth now. Instead of building new societies that evolved independently across the stars, Bethesda transplanted the world we already know. That's why it feels flat. It's not a new universe, it's a reskinned version of ours. Todd Howard claims Starfield aimed to be a realistic space experience, thus no other alien races, but that idea falls apart quickly. We have no idea what—
Well, Todd Howard also made a Fallout game without NPCs because reasons, I guess.
Actually out there. So limiting yourself isn't realism, it's a lack of creativity. And Starfield is full of alien monsters attacking you on every planet. So the realism argument contradicts itself anyway. In practice, Bethesda's version of realism just became humans in space plus hostile.
Oh yeah, I actually forgot about this one. One of the defenses that Bethesda ran with at when Starfield released and people critiqued it was, well, we try to go for what realism? Where is this magical realism? Please introduce me to it like I'm 5.
Wildlife. Sentient alien species apparently being too far-fetched. Established lore had masked Bethesda's writing weaknesses in the past, but without it, Starfield exposed them, which explains its poor reception. The decline in faction quality also showcases this. Fallout New Vegas has various factions, each with their own goals, beliefs, and you can justify them all.
Wait, what factions even exist in Starfield?
Morally grey writing, no one faction was the obvious bad guy, whereas Starfield simplified it to cowboys are good, because they are, and pirates are bad because they are. No pre-built lore to cover poor writing. Okay, but Bethesda have always struggled in this department, right? So Obsidian then had the chance to come in and give us that space exploration we truly crave, and show Bethesda how it's done. Oh wait, it's the same thing. Once again, it was solely humans in space, and once again, it's all modern Earth themed. Capitalistic greedy corporations, businesses, bars and restaurants lifted from our planet and stuck on some obscure planet. If you could only see the interior of these buildings and not see the weird foliage outside, you'd think you were still in a regular city on Earth. It's literally—
Now, to be fair, this does look more like BioShock than anything else, but that's fine.
The same thing Bethesda have done. It's just what we already have on Earth now, just plopped onto new planets. Even the factions are bland. The Protectorate rules with heavy-handed control, convinced their people are happier when they don't have to think about what they want to do. Auntie's Choice sells the dream of freedom while milking consumers for every credit. And the Order of the Ascendant obsesses over a universal equation, chasing transcendence while forgetting why
There's actually a hidden faction also that doesn't matter.
Anyone would care. So, a controlling group, a greedy megacorp, and mathematicians. That's it. That's what you could come up with for a space setting that literally has no limitations. The first two represent different branches of government, different ideals, which are definitely not new ideas. And the Order of the Ascendant are some of the most boring people I've ever met in gaming. Whenever you speak to them, they keep making jokes about what the percent—
how does she even see? Like, what is happening? How? Like, what? She just... It makes... But she can't, because it's like there's no this for the lenses, so she can only see up. Like, why?
percentage odds are of X happening. Are you going to go and take out that facility? I place your odds at 0.032% chance of survival, but perhaps I forgot to calculate the variables. A faction who care only about equations and probability. It just seems so simplistic and one-dimensional. A faction built entirely around probability jokes isn't deep characterization. It's a gimmick.
Wait, that's not even a faction. What he described is not even an actual faction that could ever work. Because if you're making a faction about, okay, let's calculate the probability of X, that doesn't do anything. Like, the fact that you calculated the probability of a coin toss doesn't actually give you a direction, because just doing math for a probability inherently is flawed because it doesn't give you the right outcome. The idea of a universal equation makes only sense if that equation tells you the right outcome of things. But here it's not even the right outcome of things. It's just like, oh, there's a 20% chance of rain. Ooh. It's not good. It's really not good, in fact.
Capitalism abusing workers for profit, a regime that wants to control their people. Man, this is the most bland world design I've ever
seen. The capitalists are even not actually doing their job properly in this stupid franchise, because the dystopian capitalist society is the idea that we're gonna have earth scrapers where air and sunlight are gonna be a luxury. And stuff like that, you know? Redesigning trains for the 27 billionth time by tech bros so they're less efficient and take up more space, not slower. Okay? That's the dystopian capitalism stuff, you know? For like Cyberpunk 2077, even though that's not my favorite example. That's actually just normal life. But, you know, stuff like that is supposed to be the dystopian capitalist society where every action just is -1 credit for a company that allows you to lease the right to do it. But they don't do that here. People actually have free will. Like, how is that maximizing profits?
Scene. Once again, compared to the factions from Fallout New Vegas, it's a huge step down. The NCR from Fallout New Vegas were morally complex, acting both as a stabilizing force that brings order and protection to the Mojave, while also imposing imperialistic control that often exploits the very people it claims to help.
Now, granted, that's not actually morally complex, okay? That's in terms of philosophy, Fallout New Vegas is not actually complex. We have never actually talked about this, but Fallout New Vegas is great, and it's very interesting, don't get me wrong. It's literally my top 3 game of all time. But the factions are not actually, like, morally complex. They're very straightforward. Because what Fallout New Vegas does is actually a trick. This is what it does. It creates, because it introduces you to a setting. There's the Legion, there's the NCR, they're gonna fight. And you are only supposed to look at some very narrow parameters for what their ideologies actually do. And some, you know, slightly bigger ones like, oh, the NCR cannot control vast distances of land because their supplies are spread too thin. Which is bullshit, by the way. Yes. Because you're not actually supposed to, like, think about that too much. You're just supposed to understand, yeah, in the current situation they are in, this is fundamentally true. Same with the Legion and same with that. Okay? You're not actually supposed... There are so many flaws to this, but the setting they land in doesn't make you think about everything that, you know, is gonna... reverberate from the choices that they made and how society actually should function under them. Because they are in a very specific moment in time where the outcome matters, and you are supposed to judge what is the best outcome on, well, what they plan to do for said situation. And that's kinda it. That's why Fallout New Vegas is great, because it doesn't really do the grandstanding of morality. It just puts you in a situation where it's enough information for you to contemplate the decision from the bad side and from the good side, but not in a super giant sense, which makes it good. This game doesn't fucking do that, though.
Anti's choice is just greedy because capitalism. There's no depth and it just seems uninspired. A quick note on the writing. In both games, it leans heavily on modern slang. NPCs speak in like casual corporate buzzword-filled tones, and they crack mall-style jokes, undercutting the futuristic high-stakes setting. It feels juvenile, like it's written for teenagers, with predictable cringe humor, similar to what we saw in games like Dragon Age the Veilguard, Avowed, and many others. So it's based in the future, yet we still speak like we do now. There's a reason why medieval games like Witcher use British accents with people who use old world terms like verily and tyke. It's to create a believable world from the past. There's a reason cyberpunk citizens use terms like gonk and chum. It's to show this new world has evolved and created its own dialect. The Outer Worlds 2 and Starfield sound like they are from today with no unique characteristics. The Outer Worlds 2 is set in the year of 2362. 300 years in the future. You could be on the planet of Eden and feel like you were talking to someone from California today. This is immersion breaking and shows a lack of creativity.
That's good.
My point is, both Starfield and The Outer Worlds 2 had entire galaxies to explore, yet all they delivered were humans in space, carrying over modern Earth culture, bland factions, and dialogue that feels straight out of today's headlines. You're in space, but you needn't have bothered going. You've already experienced it all. This boring world building leads to quest lines that feel predictable and offer nothing new. Because the lore isn't adventurous, the game feels devoid of life, which ruins the entire experience. Now, let's contrast this to Mass Effect. Mass Effect has many different alien races in its world, all of which have different backgrounds, genetic makeup, history, languages, and belief systems. This adds narrative
Okay,
depth.
listen, Mass Effect is just better in this case than those two games because, yeah, hot alien women, okay? Listen, if you're gonna have a space game, I'm not saying you kinda should add hot alien women, but you definitely should, okay? Actually, not even asking, I'm literally demanding, okay? That is what's gonna make the franchise good. You know I'm right. You deep down, you know that I am absolutely right. Anyway, that was ABB Gaming 10 out of 10. Bye.